Hello, this is Patrick Ash, author, musician, elder millennial with the angst to go with it. And tonight I will be doing a album ranking and review of the symphonic metal band Nightwish. One of my favorites. I know they sometimes get flack from kind of like the true cult or whatever people that don't like the genre, don't like the band in particular, or whatever. Overall, I think they do have they/him. I know a lot of this is like the brainchild of Thomas, so I think there is a lot of great work in their discography. But you'll see I also have a fair amount of critiques as well. I think some people out there are like fanboys and girls, while other people, it's like kind of like the love it or hate it thing. And I'm like, for the most part, love, but there's some things I will critique. So some of this, at least starting out, I'm going to be taking from a review I did of their most recent album, Human Nature. It's stylized title. But then I'll kind of get into general commentary. Okay, so Nightwish has been a top 10 band in my repertoire for decades, pardon the pun on their compilation. I love the power metal days. I love the modern symphonic stuff. And all their singers, kind of like I've said in other videos with Van Halen and Stradivarius and Pink Floyd. Some people seem to have strong opinions about which era they like, and especially like around singers, like people do for Van Halen, for sure. And I'm not that way. I really do, for me, I really focus more on the music itself. And so as you'll see, like my love it or hate is pretty well mixed. And in fact, if I were just to focus on the vocals, Jansen would actually be my favorite of all of the singers for Nightwish. I think she is the vocalist that has fit their style of music. Versus, even though I like Tarja and Anette in their own ways, but Flora's been my favorite vocalist. However, as you'll see in my ranking, the albums they have with Flora have definitely not been my favorite. So we'll get into that. Okay, so I love their early eras. I love their power metal era. Tons of ideas. I think they could get a better vocalist when they eventually did get Flora. Now, so just, belabor the point, but I really do find lots of good stuff across all their albums. So I'm going to start this review on the bottom. We'll work our way up. And what I consider the worst Nightwish album, and it's by a large margin, and that is their most recent album, Human Nature. Yeah. It's not that it's not well done or that the musicianship isn't, the performance, the production is good. The actual quality of the music, it's fine. It just feels very kind of like I've heard, like the phrase "I've heard this before, I've heard it all before" kept coming into my mind, which is funny because you'd think like, oh well, it's a double album and they've got like some of their something for everybody, right? They got some of their typical like power symphonic songs in the first one, then they got more orchestral stuff on the second disc. Isn't that ambitious? I'm like, not really. I mean, I guess you can kind of tell what he was trying to do. I say he/they. We all know it's kind of the brainchild of Thomas, but I'll just take this for my review here. But honestly, the first disc does nothing for me. Many of the songs have that same kind of uninspired and repetitive issues that their previous album, Endless Forms Most Beautiful, had, while not really offering anything new. The few times it does take chances, like with the song Harvest, trying not to laugh here, I would say it really fell flat. It was kind of like it sounds like a gospel song of sorts about literally a harvest and farming, and it's just so, it almost is like becoming the caricature. This is an issue I have with Marilyn Manson as well. It's like just pouring gasoline on the fires of the critics, because it's just playing right into, it's like this is super cheesy and not in a cool, fun way either. And so the theme of the humans evolving, I feel like it was already pretty well covered on the previous album. And so, anyway, so I really did not get much out of that first disc at all. Like, it sounded so much like these like leftovers from the last two albums. And then the second disc was decent. I actually liked some parts of it. It's kind of the way I felt about some of the early Floyd albums, where there's some good stuff that I might revisit, but it's nothing that is super memorable. But I do think it kind of plays into the idea that he would be a great kind of orchestral film composer. It's obvious that he gets inspiration from Hans Zimmer and whom else? Drawing a blank on his name. James Horner, like from Braveheart and that kind of thing. So, like, I kind of feel like maybe you should just go into film scores and just, anyway. But there's so many Nightwish fanboys and girls. Sorry, you might be listening to this right now, but yeah, Human Nature just really does not do much for me. It feels like it's kind of out of ideas, and I'm just I've listened to it a few times. I don't get anything out of it, or I should say very little. I gave it 2 stars on Amazon, so yeah. So, but yet I feel like the talent is there. It's just the ideas that tank has, I feel like it's just running on fumes, in my opinion. So, so let's go up to slot number 8 with Angels Fall First, the first album. So you can already see there's a lot of like going back and forth with my list, but Angels Fall First, it's solid. I like it more now than I did like 10 or so years ago when I first started listening to the band. And you could tell they were just getting started. I think they've spoken to it themselves about they were kind of first coming together, but it's not bad. It's kind of very typical of the genre. But as I talk, I've got Carpenter stuck in my mind. But it's a solid first album. I feel like they were kind of just getting off the ground, and so it's worth revisiting, but it also doesn't have any of, I would say, their best material either. Nothing that's like really, amazing. So versus, say, the next album up, which is Endless Forms Most Beautiful, their second to most previous album. This one I think is overall a really good album. Now, I say that, but I feel like so much of the greatness in this album, speaking of Pink Floyd, I feel like so much of it is in the epic. Greatest Show on Earth. I'll just say, like, when I very first listened to this album, I was feeling a little underwhelmed at first. I was like, okay, there's a few good songs. And then I knew that they had written this big epic. I was a little afraid. I was afraid that it's like, this is probably one of those ambitious things that doesn't pay off. It's like, well, no, that would be human nature. But Greatest Show on Earth is fantastic. I really feel like it's one of their best songs. And it's very inspired. It really earns its runtime. That's the credit I give both that song and Echoes. I've mentioned this on a few of my videos and rankings, but it is an epic that really keeps you engaged consistently throughout, like whether it's hitting hard or it's more chill and atmospheric. I think part of my hesitance when I first started was some reviews have been like, oh, this is such a weird song, it's just got animal noises and stuff, and I was like, what am I getting myself into? But like, it's just playing into that thing. I mean, it's a brief moment, it's just playing into the whole evolution. I think, for one thing, I think the idea of writing a song about the story of life on Earth is pretty amazing. I think that's very cool. Even going through like the present to the future and our eventual, one day our race will have been run. But yeah, so I absolutely love it. I think it's one of the best songs, and a lot of, I think, why I value this over the previous two albums is in that one track. Because otherwise, I will say there's a lot of, I guess, fat to trim on this album. A lot of songs that I am just not into, that I do think are repetitive, kind of like with songs on human nature. Weak Fantasy and Yours Is an Empty Hope. It just, like, they sound just like Master Passion Greed off of Dark Passion Play. And the title track, My Walden, it's just, so many of these songs are they're just okay. I kind of like the first one, the Shudder Before the Beautiful. I thought was a good intro. And I actually really like the instrumental, The Eyes of Shabbat Gula, the Afghan Girl. I think that's on the Time magazine. A little bit of personal trivia is I was once in a class in college where we did a call with a photographer who was it photographer or, yeah, who did that shoot, that famous picture, and it's just a really cool song. Our Decades in the Sun's a decent song too, but yeah, overall, I put it to 7 out of 9, and almost all that's really in Greatest Show on Earth. It's a fantastic song, and I think that's a credit to the band. I kind of wish that was the point where the band decided to kind of pack it up. Maybe they'll do something awesome in the future. So, next up on the list is Century Child. This is a very solid album. You can tell by my ranking, it's kind of more in the mid-tier for Nightwish. It's one of those, like, it doesn't have, like, one really awesome song like the last one in my ranking, but it's got several really good ones. I love kind of like the intro with Blessed Child and End of All Hope. That's a hard-hitting one. That was one of those songs that really was fitting for a point in my past. And Ever Dream, classic track. I feel like Flora really knocks that one out of them. In fact, when I saw them perform in Tempe, Arizona, I want to say it was October 9th, 2012. I think it was the 9th. But I think that was the first time Flora had ever performed the song publicly, anyway, like in a show, and it was awesome. And the end of the song, people were just going nuts, cheering, even though she had just joined the band like a week or so before that. So it just kind of was great memory. So Ever Dream. So Slaying the Dreamer, I think, Forever Yours, and got some nice stuff in the middle. Phantom of the Opera, and I do like Beauty of the Beast. The ending track is pretty solid. So it's a solid, good mid-tier album. Doesn't blow me away, but it's something that I always like listening to. Some of the bonus tracks are like Lagoon, Wayfarer. Yeah, also good stuff. So yeah, Century Child at number 6. So next up on the list, let's go with Once. I kind of jokingly refer to this album as being newish, in the sense that it's kind of sounds like they're new metal, which was pretty big at that point in the kind of early 2000s, early to mid 2000s, and so stylistically, there's some parts of this album that I'm not crazy about. Some of the ones in the middle, like Siren, Dead Gardens, and Romanticide, like those ones kind of run together. When I listen to them, it's like, okay, this is another newish song. But it does start out with several of their classics. Dark Chest of Wonders, I consider one of the best Nightwish songs. It's even though it's a standard song length, it sounds very epic. Wish I Had an Angel. I like that one. It may sound kind of, I don't know, hot topic-y or whatever you want to call it, but I think it's, I'm in love with my lust, burning angel wings to dust. It's got a cool feel to it, nice imagery. So Nemo, kind of like Elon and some of the and Amaranth on Dark Passion Play. it's like one of those like go-to Nightwish like once an album singles. It's like they always have that one like single song that I kind of am not that into. I have an issue with Nightwish similar to U2 actually, which you'll hear me talk about in another video, but where I can almost get why people don't like them, because some of the singles and well-known songs I'm just very meh about. I can kind of get why people kind of dismiss them and won't give them a good listen, because the singles just don't do a whole lot for me. So anyway, but Planet Hell, very good song. And then they had John Two Hawks, I believe his name is, who came in with Creek Mary's Blood. I think like on the live album they had, which was also really good. The live album's good stuff. One of the bands that really pays to listen to the live stuff. Yeah, just really cool, like that Native American sound, and I like the flute and instrumentation. But then later on the album, it kind of is U-shaped, where it starts pretty strong and ends pretty strong. In the middle is kind of meh. But then you have, of course, Ghost Love Score, all-time great Nightwish track. People know it and love it. That's the one that they often play live. It really gets a great response. See, that it's one people usually recommend when they talk about Nightwish, for good reason. It's a true classic. And kind of like with Century Child and some other albums, like they have some really good bonus tracks on there, like White Knight Fantasy and Live to Tell a Tale are really nice. So not sure if you want to count that in the ranking, but I do think Higher Than Hope, like the album ends on quite strong, and the not even try to pronounce the Finnish song title, but I really like that song. So yeah, once got some really good songs. It's close. It's almost tied with Century Child for me. So if it weren't for that new metal influence, which I'm not saying I hate all new metal, it's just that generally speaking, it's kind of like you heard a few songs and you kind of heard it all. But it's it's got some overall really good songs. It's kind of strong in the beginning and end, and yeah, blah 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 blah. But I think a considerably big step up was their next album, after, of course, they broke up with their original singer, Tarja Turunen. I'm going to butcher that pronunciation, aren't I? And brought on Anette and Dark Passion Play. This is a really, really good album. This has some of what I consider their best songs, like The Poet and the Pendulum. That is, I consider, one of the best Nightwish songs. I might even call it their best. I absolutely love that song. It's one of those epics that it's 13, 14 minutes long, and yet you could probably even build off of that effectively. It really is a true epic classic, and so I just love that right there already is going to make this a really good album. But I also love some of the other, Bye Bye Beautiful, of course, their kind of breakup song, if you will. Very good. Like I mentioned, Amaranth, as with Nemo, as with Elon, it's just, it's like the requisite single. It's okay. I don't love it. Then some of the other ones, like Cadence of Her Last Breath, Master Passion, Greed. Those are really hard-hitting songs. Eva and Sahara, those are pretty good. Whoever Brings the Night, I feel like that's a not as well-known song. It's got a really cool kind of beat to it. And then later on the album, like with The Islander, that kind of gets into that his, what do you call it, like sailor seafaring, like almost a little quasi-Celtic or whatever, but and that and Last of the Wilds, they just sound very, it conjures up images, gray skies, kind of a seaside town and that kind of thing. It's just very cool. I really, really like those songs, and ends strongly with 7 Days to the Wolves and Meadows of Heaven. So there's just a lot of great stuff on on Dark Passion Play. So definitely deserves to be up at number 4. Now for number 3, we're getting into some true greats. Go to their power metal days with Wishmaster. Wishmaster. This is kind of the album that got me into Nightwish. I had first heard the whatchamacallit, Over the Hills and Far Away EP, kind of like live and with a few other songs, and I kept listening to it, and so I got Wishmaster, this exact copy. It's how old? Going on almost 20 years old that I bought this album. Anyway, so many great songs, very hard. People kind of dismiss it as just a symphonic metal band, or heaven forbid someone say it's like, oh, they just sound like Evanescence. Oh God, please do not say that. But some of the songs, She Is My Sin, The Kinslayer, Wanderlust, very, very awesome, powery songs. Two for Tragedy, and of course, the title track, Wishmaster. It has that kind of infamous misheard lyrics video, hamster, a dentist. It's funny, but, it's the song itself is pretty cool. Bear Grace Smith, Crownless, a really good song. Deep Silent Complete, and then ending with Dead Boy's poem and Phantasmic, which I think is kind of one of his Disney-related things. And I get that he loves like Disney and like Last Ride of the Day on another album I'm about to mention. But it's like, okay, that's cool. I'm not super into Disney, but I kind of appreciate his appreciation, if that makes sense. But it's just, the songwriting is so strong. I like some of the guitar work from Impuvorian. I'm going to butcher all their names. Please go ahead and correct me if you must. But just the playing is really, really strong. Very good album to check out. I think some people do call it their favorite, and I can't fault them in the least. So yeah, Wishmaster, number 3. All right, so 2 albums left. And these are both pretty strong contenders, but and I think one of them, this next one, just the fact that it's this high is probably going to bother people, but whatever. I really have to put Imaginarum up at number 2. What a great album this is. When I talk about loving the different eras of this band, I was just talking about the power metal era, and this is more the symphonic metal. Came out 2011, 2012. I think it was kind of like on the border, depending on Europe or US or whatever. But this is such a great album. I think he was at the top of his instrumental symphonic game when he put this together. Just immediately when it starts off with that intro track, it just conjures up different images and feelings, and it's takes you into its story, which if you've seen the movie they did before, it's actually done surprisingly well. Like, I didn't have very high expectations, high hopes when I watched it, and I was like, actually, it's pretty touching. So it's a really cool kind of cohesive concept album in a way, but it's cool that it can be a concept album, but it also kind of works like individual tracks. So yes, I love the intro, and then Storytime, I think, is one of their, talk about their requisite singles, but that song is fantastic. I love it. Really is I'm gonna go ahead and shut my laptop, but that is a single I keep coming back to. Kind of like Ghost River and I Want My Tears Back. They're solid, but I like other songs more. Then we have Slow Love Slow, Jazz Wish, kind of like hanging out in a smoky parlor or something like that, and it's really nice. I actually really like that song. Enjoyed it live, and so Then we have Scare Tale, which it sounds very theatric, but it works, even just listening to it on an album. Arabesque is kind of, as I've talked in other videos, you have to have your power metal, even though this is on their obvious symphonic era, but many power metal bands feel that urge to have like a Middle Eastern sounding or song or inspiration, and oftentimes in the middle of the album. But it's good. It's a good track. And Turn Loose the Mermaids is good. Rest Calm is nice. The Crow, the Owl, and the Dove is kind of plays into the we all know he loves poetry and Walt Whitman and all that. Last Friday of the Day, as I mentioned, he literally written about going on like roller coasters. Okay, we can take inspiration from all sorts of things, can't you? But we end with Song of Myself, which is one of my favorite Nightwish songs. I know it kind of gets flack for having like its spoken word outro with all the different people and characters. Some of them are kind of strange, kind of off-putting, but some of them are kind of touching and inspired. But the way it starts, I think, is really kind of pulls you in, and I think is indicative of what you can do with that symphonic sound to, I don't know, be kind of emotionally invested. It's you can tell it's like he's really coming straight from the heart. So I love that song. I love Storytime. I love so many of these songs. I feel like it's just rewarding to go back and listen to. So that's why it's my number 2. Some people hate it, but many of them are the kind of people who do have strong opinions about the eras or whatever. So whatever. They're missing out. But if I have to pick an all-time greatest Nightwish album, I, of course, go for Oceanborn. Holy crap, I love Oceanborn. It's almost like this album is a little bit too good, if that makes any sense at all. This is one that I keep being impressed and amazed whenever I listen to it. Just consistently throughout the songs, the riffs, it's just fantastic. Stargazers, Devil in the Deep Dark Ocean, Sacrament of Wilderness is one of my early favorites when I first started listening. Swan Heart, Moon Dance, The Riddler, Pharaoh Sails to Orion. That's a kick-ass song. I wish they'd play that more often. It's a really, really great song. And then finishing off with Walking in the Air and Sleeping Sun. God bless, like this, it just has so consistently great songs. Love the riffs, love the feel, the keys, the guitar, it just all works so well together. And I just feel like this is a landmark album. It is one of my all-time favorites in the power metal genre. Even though people often debate whether or not they're even a power metal band, but it's like this album is very kind of checks the boxes of being power metal, and it's just so. It's like the kind of album that I've been yearning to hear when I finally heard it, and it's just so tight and so impressive, and it's like if you are willing to give power or symphonic metal a day in court, please do check it out. And it's like if this is a movie, then maybe you're one of those hipstery indie kids or whatever, which that actually did happen to me once. When I was listening to this album, it's like Pearls Before Swine, we're like, oh god, this is so campy. I'm exaggerating the voice, but not much. And I'm like, all right, cool. You're just too cool for school. I love it. I love this album. It has so much replay value. So gotta go with Oceanborn, all-time great for Nightwish, for the genre, however you want to define it. It's a classic. Love it. All right. Please let me know what you think. Share your thoughts, your feelings, your rankings, whether or not you like or dislike different eras. Maybe you disagree with me on that or human nature or any of these choices. So, all right, like, subscribe, share, all that stuff, and take care.